There's a saying, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. It's not just a quote. It's a warning. We often think our future is shaped by our goals, our ambition, or our talents, but we forget the silent architects of our destiny, the people we surround ourselves with. Let me tell you the truth most people won't. Your environment drives your behavior. You become what you're around. The people in your circle are not just companions, they are influencers. Not the kind on social media, the real kind. The ones who set the tone of your life without saying a word. Look, at the people you spend the most time with, are they building you or breaking your momentum without even realizing it? Because energy is contagious. If you hang around people who complain, you'll find yourself frustrated with life. But if you surround yourself with people who take action, who show up even on the hard days, you'll start to rise without even noticing it. Momentum spreads, so does mediocrity. And here's something most people never realize. Your standards are set by your circle. If everyone around you settles for just enough, you'll start thinking greatness is optional. But when your friends expect excellence from you, not because they're pressuring you, but because they believe in you, everything changes. We often believe that our behavior is solely the result of conscious choice, of sheer willpower or internal discipline, but the truth is more subtle and more powerful. Much of what we do, feel, and even aspire to becomes a reflection of the environment we're in. We are deeply shaped by the spaces we occupy and, more importantly, by the people who fill those spaces. Environment is not just the physical room we're in or the neighborhood we live in. It's the emotional and mental energy that surrounds us. It's the conversations we hear daily, the attitudes we observe, the habits we witness and absorb, often unconsciously. Every interaction leaves an imprint. Every tone of voice, every belief shared, every decision made by the people around us, it all seeps into our psychology and influences the choices we make. If you walk into a room filled with driven, focused, and mission-oriented people, your mindset begins to shift. You feel inspired to move forward, to raise your standards. You sense urgency in the air, not anxiety, but purpose. Even if you enter that space feeling tired or unsure, the energy pulls you up. Why? Because behavior is not just internally generated. It's sparked, shaped, and reinforced by what surrounds us. On the flip side, think about what happens when you consistently spend time in environments of low energy, negativity, or complacency. It starts slowly. Maybe you begin to laugh at the same complaints. Maybe you stop sharing your ambitions because nobody seems to care. Maybe you lower your goals so you don't outshine others and feel disconnected. Before long, you're stuck in a pattern you never chose, but tolerated. That's the power of environment. It doesn't ask for permission. It just works, silently, steadily, shaping who you become. This is why your circle matters. You don't just choose your friends. You choose the climate of your life. You choose the voices that echo in your head when no one's speaking. You choose whether your default state is one of motivation or mediocrity. Now, here's what most people get wrong. They think changing behavior is all about fixing themselves. So they read more books, watch more motivational content, write down more goals, and those things help. But if you don't change the system you're in, the environment, then lasting change becomes incredibly difficult. Because let's be honest, you can't consistently outwork your surroundings. You can't stay focused if you're constantly distracted. You can't dream big if everyone around you plays small. You can't grow when your environment keeps you rooted in the same old patterns. The fastest way to change your life is not by fighting your current habits. It's by upgrading your environment. When you step into spaces that demand more from you, you naturally rise. When you're surrounded by people who live with discipline, creativity, and courage, you feel the pressure, but it's a good pressure. It's the kind that forges you into something greater. That's the beauty of it. The environment you choose can become the accountability you've always needed. It becomes the silent coach that keeps you on track when no one's watching. And it's not about being around perfect people. It's about being around people who are growing, evolving, and refusing to settle. So if you're serious about becoming the best version of yourself, don't just look inward. Look around. The change you're looking for might already be happening. It just needs the right environment to take root. Choose it wisely. Because your environment doesn't just influence your behavior, it becomes it. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt a shift either a spark of inspiration or a heavy sense of negativity without anyone saying a word. That's not imagination, that's energy. And whether we realize it or not, energy is one of the most contagious forces in human interaction. It moves faster than words, it speaks louder than actions, and it quietly shapes our moods, decisions, and even our beliefs. Every person carries a certain energy. Some people radiate hope, discipline, and focus. Others carry chaos, fear, or cynicism. And when you spend enough time around someone, their energy doesn't just stay with them, it rubs off on you. It starts to alter your inner climate. Their emotional state starts to influence yours. You adopt their pace, their tone, even their habits, whether you're aware of it or not. That's the subtle but undeniable power of proximity. When you sit next to someone who is excited about their goals, who wakes up every day with a sense of purpose, who approaches life with gratitude and drive, it's hard not to feel lifted. Their presence nudges you toward action. You feel it in the way they talk about challenges, not as obstacles, but as opportunities. You watch how they show up consistently, and it makes you reflect on how you're showing up in your own life. Now reverse that scenario. Imagine you're consistently around people who complain, procrastinate, or belittle ambition. Over time, that energy wears on you. It doesn't hit all at once. It's more like erosion than an explosion. A few negative comments here, a couple eye rolls when you share your dreams, constant conversations that revolve around blame or gossip. And slowly, your drive begins to fade. You start to question your direction. You lower your standards, not because you want to, but because the people around you have convinced you, directly or indirectly, that aiming higher is unrealistic or unnecessary. That's how energy works. It spreads. And the most dangerous part, it spreads without your permission. This is why being intentional about who you surround yourself with is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Because even the strongest mindset can be weakened by constant exposure to negativity. And even the most uncertain person can be transformed by being around belief, encouragement, and action. It's not about judging people or cutting everyone off. It's about recognizing that your energy is your most valuable currency. And if you constantly invest it in spaces or relationships that deplete you, don't be surprised when you feel stuck, drained, or uninspired. Great energy isn't about being loud, overly optimistic, or pretending everything is perfect. It's about alignment. It's about being around people who are honest, who are growing, who want to see you win, and who push you. Not because they want to control you, but because they believe in you. That belief is contagious too. We absorb more than we think. We mirror the emotions of those closest to us. That's why after spending time with certain people, you feel more creative, more motivated, more focused. Not because they gave you answers, but because their energy reminded you of who you could be. So ask yourself, what kind of energy are you absorbing daily? Who are you allowing to influence your emotional climate? Who makes you feel like more is possible? And who makes you feel like you're already too much? Your environment may be filled with people, but it's your responsibility to decide whose energy to invite in. Because that energy doesn't just affect your mood, it directs your momentum. And momentum, once set in motion, becomes your path. Choose wisely. Because energy isn't just contagious, it's transformative. We like to believe that we set our own standards, that we decide how hard we work, how far we reach, and how disciplined we become. But the truth is, much of that is shaped by who we're surrounded by. Our circle doesn't just influence how we feel, it defines what we accept as normal. And over time, that becomes a reality. Spend enough time around people who are comfortable with average, and you'll start to think excellence is extreme. But spend your time around those who demand more from themselves, and suddenly, what once felt like ambition becomes your new baseline. It's not about comparison, it's about calibration. We all have an internal thermostat. It regulates how we perform, how we see ourselves, and what we think we're capable of. But like any thermostat, it can be adjusted. And the people closest to you are constantly reaching for the dial. If your circle values growth, learning, discipline, and resilience, that becomes your default. You rise, not because someone forced you to, but because the atmosphere doesn't allow you to stay small. You're surrounded by people who move differently, think differently, and live by a higher standard, and that energy raises your bar. On the other hand, if your circle is filled with people who tolerate laziness, make excuses, or settle for just getting by, it starts to affect your vision. You stop aiming higher, not because you don't want to succeed, but because no one around you expects more. And when no one expects more from you, you stop expecting it from yourself. It's subtle, but powerful. You start to shrink to fit the room you are in. That's why your circle is either a ceiling or a springboard. It either holds you in place or launches you forward. And the difference lies in what your circle celebrates and what it challenges. Do your friends cheer for effort or only for comfort? Do they applaud your growth or make fun of your goals? Do they push you to be honest with yourself, or do they let you slide into habits that don't serve you? Your standards aren't shaped in isolation. They're formed in conversation, in shared silence, in moments when you say, I think I'll take a day off, and someone says, you've earned it. Versus someone who says, why? What's the mission today? One responds, feed your comfort. The other reminds you of your purpose. The most successful people didn't get there alone. They had a circle, not always big, but intentional. People who raised the standard simply by living it. People who didn't preach discipline but practiced it. Who didn't talk about potential but pulled it out of you by showing you what's possible. And here's the key. This works both ways. You're not just a product of your circle. You're also a contributor to it. The standards you live by affect others too. You can be the reason someone else levels up. You can be the mirror that reflects who they're capable of becoming. So if you want to grow, look around. Who are you becoming when you're with your circle? Are you sharpening your edge or getting dull? Are your friends pushing you closer to your potential or keeping you safely distant from it? You don't have to cut people off to grow, but you do have to make a decision. Choose to spend more time with those who live by the standards you want for yourself. Not just because they're successful, but because they're consistent. They live in alignment. They don't settle. Because in the end, your standards won't rise by accident. They rise with your circle. And your circle is a choice. Trust is one of the most valuable currencies in any relationship, but it's often misunderstood. Many people think trust is built through time alone, or through shared experiences, or by simply being around each other long enough. And while those things can help, the deepest kind of trust, the kind that lasts, the kind that empowers growth, is built through something far more powerful: shared vision. When two people, or a group of people, see the world through a similar lens, when they share values, purpose, and direction, trust becomes natural. Not forced, not conditional, but rooted in alignment. You know someone has your back not because they say it, but because they want what you want. They care about what you care about. And that connection goes beyond surface level loyalty. It becomes a bond of belief. Shared vision doesn't mean you have the same goals or the same path. It means you're walking in the same direction. It means you both believe in something bigger than yourselves. You both have a reason to keep showing up, to keep growing, to keep pushing. And when that vision is clear, trust becomes effortless. You don't have to second guess their intentions. You don't have to wonder if they'll show up when it matters. Because they're not just in your life for convenience, they're in it for purpose. Think about the people you trust the most. Chances are, they're not just close to you, they understand you. They believe in the same kind of life you're trying to build. That's the foundation. Trust built without shared vision is fragile, it cracks under pressure. But trust rooted in aligned purpose, that's unshakable. And the opposite is also true. When there's no shared vision, when people are moving in different directions with different values, trust begins to fade. Misunderstandings happen more often. Doubt creeps in. You start to feel like you have to explain yourself constantly, defend your dreams, or downplay your ambition. That's not trust, that's survival. This is why choosing your circle with intention is so critical. It's not about being around people who look like you, think exactly like you, or have the same background. It's about alignment, shared vision, mutual belief in a direction, in a purpose. When that's in place, collaboration becomes effortless. Accountability feels natural. Growth becomes mutual. Shared vision also creates emotional safety. When you know someone is driven by the same values, integrity, growth, contribution, you don't have to filter yourself. You can be vulnerable. You can be honest. You can say, I'm struggling, and know they won't judge you. They will remind you of who you are. That's what trust does. It creates space for realness, not performance. In a world where relationships often feel transactional, shared vision brings depth. It turns acquaintances into allies, friends into family, because when you share a vision, you fight for each other. You don't compete, you complement. You don't hold each other back, you hold each other up. You don't just celebrate wins, You contribute to them. And here's the beautiful part. When you operate with vision, you start attracting others who do the same. It's magnetic. People are drawn to clarity. They're drawn to conviction. And the more you live in alignment with your own values and goals, the more likely you are to find people who truly get you. So if you want to build trust, the real kind, the lasting kind, don't chase approval, chase alignment. Don't just ask, do they support me? Ask, do we see the world the same way? Are we moving in the same direction? Because trust isn't just about time or history, it's about vision. And when that vision is shared, trust becomes the bridge that takes you further together. Distance requires courage. The courage to face what's hard, to risk what's safe, to step into the unknown when staying put would be easier. But here's the beautiful part. Discomfort is temporary. Growth is lasting. You might struggle for a season, but what you gain, confidence, skill, clarity, strength, stays with you forever. The pain passes, the power remains. So you have a choice every single day. Do you want to be comfortable or do you want to grow? You can't have both. Because every step toward the life you really want will ask you to leave behind the life you're used to. Every new level will require a new mindset, new habits, new standards, and none of that lives in your comfort zone. So when you feel resistance, lean in. When things get hard, dig deeper. When your comfort zone whispers, stay here, take a step anyway. Because that's where growth lives, just beyond what feels safe. And the life you're capable of creating, it starts the moment you stop settling for comfort and start fighting for change. One of the hardest truths about growth is that it changes your relationship with people. Not always because you stop loving them, not because they wronged you, and not because you've become better than them, but because you no longer align with the patterns you once shared. Growth shifts your mindset, your habits, your energy. And sometimes that shift quietly pulls you away from those who were once closest to you. It's easy to say, I've outgrown them, but what's really happened is that you've outgrown the dynamic. The way you used to think, act, or connect. You've outgrown the conversations that don't challenge you. You've outgrown the jokes that don't land anymore. The habits that once felt fun but now feel empty. The routines that once felt safe but now feel suffocating. It's not the person you've outgrown, it's the pattern you shared with them. This is important to understand because without this awareness, you'll carry guilt. You'll feel like you're leaving people behind. You'll feel responsible for the distance, even if you didn't cause it. But the truth is, growth will create distance. And that's okay. It's not a betrayal. It's evolution. When you begin to change your standards, prioritize your peace, protect your energy, or chase something bigger than what you used to settle for, you begin to operate on a different frequency. And people who haven't shifted yet or who don't want to may not understand, they may resist it, they may even take it personally. But it's not personal, it's natural. Relationships are built on rhythm, on shared values, experiences, and timing. When that rhythm changes even slightly, the connection feels off. And if you try to force it, you'll start dimming your light just to fit back into the version of yourself that made others comfortable. That's not loyalty, that's self-abandonment. You're not supposed to stay in the same place forever. You're supposed to evolve. And sometimes that evolution means you can no longer engage in the same loops you once lived in. Whether that's gossip, complacency, complaining, self-doubt, or playing small. You begin to crave depth, clarity, honesty. You want different things from your time, your energy, and your circle. But here's the key. Outgrowing a pattern doesn't mean you need to cut someone off. It just means you shift how you relate to them. You adjust your boundaries. You redefine the dynamic. You stop looking for what no longer exists, and you honor the space between who they are and who you're becoming. Sometimes the bond adjusts and survives. Sometimes it quietly dissolves. Both are valid. Both are part of the process. This doesn't make anyone wrong. It just makes everyone real. Some people are perfect for your past. They were the right voice, the right energy at a certain stage of your journey. They helped you grow to this point. And now, the next version of you needs different input, different energy, different accountability. That's what growth demands. New patterns, new beliefs, new standards. Not because the old ones were bad, but because they've done their job. So don't shame yourself for the distance. Don't apologize for the shifts. And don't force old connections to survive just because of history. Respect the role people played in your life and respect your right to move forward. Because you're not walking away from people, you're walking toward the person you're becoming, and sometimes that means letting go of patterns that no longer fit the life you're building. That's not selfish, that's necessary, that's growth.